Rescued, incredible soldier and his K-9 discover abandoned girl's touching whisper for help. Jake Thompson trudged through the overgrown brush at the edge of Maplewood, each step heavy with memories he wished to bury. The silence weighed down on him, a thick fog of unshakable thought that had settled since he returned from combat. Rebel, his loyal K-9, kept pace beside him, his heavy panting breaking through the oppressive quiet. Each moment spent alone felt like a battle, a fight against the haunting echoes of war of his best friend, Tom, whose face would appear like a specter in the darkness. Jake often wondered if he'd ever truly escape those shadows. As they navigated the familiar path, Jake felt the pang of invisible chains dragging behind him, guilt and grief, reminders that he had come back from hell while others had not. Would he ever be whole again? Would the town accept the soldier who bore scars no one could see? Suddenly, Rebel halted, his ears perking up like antennas as he scanned the underbrush. Jake's heart raced as he strained to hear whatever had caught Rebel's attention. A whisper floated on the breeze, barely perceptible but unmistakably filled with desperation. "Help!" Jake's breath hitched, and he pushed aside the branches to peer into the darkness. His stomach churned as he uncovered a frail figure huddled beneath the brambles. The eyes staring back at him belonged to a girl no older than 8. "I'm Lily," she said, her voice barely above a breath, shadowed by a life that had led her to this moment. Instinct surged within Jake, a protective rage igniting. He knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he battled the urge to wrap her in his arms and shield her from everything that had failed her. Yet doubt crept in. What could he do for her? He could barely take care of himself. Would fostering a child be a futile attempt to stave off his own demons? He felt the weight of judgment looming, societal expectations that gnawed at his spine like moths at fabric. "You're safe now," he whispered, but the words felt hollow. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days bled into weeks, Jake's resolve to help Lily evolved into a spiraling intensity. He couldn't turn away from the idea of offering her a home, a refuge from whatever chaos had abandoned her in that dark corner. Yet Maplewood was alive with whispers. Eyes scrutinized him, words were exchanged behind closed doors. Some saw him as a savior, others as an outsider who shouldn't meddle in family affairs. Each visit to the grocery store felt like an interrogation, judgment lurking in every reflective surface. Jake watched Lily transform from a timid spirit into a flicker of light in his dim world. They spent hours painting, vibrant colors spilling onto the canvas as she began to talk about her life with a fierce honesty that only an abandoned child could possess. But as joyful laughter filled the air, an unseen tension began to build, the reality of her past lurking just beyond their idyllic moments. One morning, Lily's small voice shattered the peaceful silence. "I overheard something. I heard a name." Her big eyes were suddenly serious, the child's innocence replaced by a force of gravity. "Tom, is that your friend?" Jake's heart dropped. The connection between them writhed like a serpent, a secret that threatened the fragile bond they had created. The quiet of Maplewood seemed to hold its breath, waiting for him to respond. Could he afford to dig into the dark past that tied them together? Fear threatened to rear its ugly head again, clawing at him. A choice lay before him: foster her or abandon them both to the shadows. As his pulse quickened, Jake understood that whatever would unfold next might just tear them apart, or it could lead to the family he so desperately sought. Jake felt the tremor of uncertainty course through him as he locked eyes with Lily. Her gaze was earnest, full of innocence yet weighted with an acute awareness far beyond her years. The name Tom echoed in his mind, a ghostly reminder of loss and unresolved guilt, a name that should not have emerged in this fragile moment he had built with Lily. The truth, he murmured, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. You should know the truth. A chilling breeze wandered through the trees, as if nature itself was urging him to confront the demons he had hoped to leave buried. Tom was my best friend, Jake explained, his voice almost a whisper. He watched as concern flickered across Lily's delicate features, her small hands clutching the fabric of her dress, as if seeking comfort in the moment. He didn't come back from the war. I thought it was my fault. The confession felt like a stone dropped into still waters, sending ripples of vulnerability between them. Lily's brow furrowed deeply, and for a moment, the whispers of the past seemed to recede. How can it be your fault? She asked, her voice softly defiant, infused with a wisdom that belied her age. Her innocent rebuttal struck a chord within Jake that he hadn't anticipated. You saved me, didn't you? You didn't leave me to the bad things. He blinked back the tears that pooled in his eyes and nodded, even as the turmoil of guilt churned in his stomach. In that moment, he was reminded that they were both survivors navigating shattered paths. He felt a strange comfort in her words, a light amidst the darkness that had enveloped him for so long. Yet, doubt didn't linger, it thrashed and clawed at him, demanding to be acknowledged. Could he truly be a protector, a responsible guardian for this innocent soul when he barely managed his own emotional battlefield? Determined to sift through this emotional chaos, Jake leaned closer to Lily. You've been through a lot. But I want to help you, and I need you to help me, too. Can you trust me? I trust you, she replied without hesitance, her big eyes sparkling with determination. Jake marveled at her fortitude. This child, who had been so abandoned, dared to trust him despite the fears looming over them both. Yet as the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows across the yard, the anxiety of impending judgment crept back in like the cold. He had already felt the scrutiny from neighbors and townspeople, anticipating pity, disdain, or unchecked curiosity. Would he be able to withstand ridicule while also taking care of Lily's needs? Jake took a deep breath, the smell of pine and soil grounding him. He would have to confront those fears head-on. Foster care was not merely a title, it meant stepping into a community that may not accept him, standing firm against the whispers. With every fiber of his being, he resolved to be the guardian Lily needed, to raise her above the shadows of their intertwined pasts. As the evening deepened, Jake planned his next steps, researching the process of becoming her legal guardian while maintaining a facade of normality in Maplewood. Lily deserved stability, a sense of belonging that had eluded them both. But the weight of looming challenges nagged at him, forming an uncomfortable knot deep within his chest. What would happen if he failed? Or worse, what if the town turned against him, jeopardizing Lily's safety? Jake held on to his resolve. He was ready to confront the uncertainties ahead, even if there were no guarantees. But just as resolve solidified in his mind, a figure emerged on the horizon, an unexpected visitor striding purposefully towards their home. The air thickened with tension. Jake's eyes narrowed as anxiety twisted in his gut. It was time to face whatever was coming, and the nurturing care of the past few weeks hung precariously in the balance. Would this encounter seal their fate or unravel the fragile connection he had built with Lily? A heavy silence enveloped Jake as he watched the figure draw closer. The sun's final rays reflected off a polished badge on the newcomer's uniform, causing Jake's heart to race. It was Officer Duncan, the town's law enforcement officer, a man renowned for his stern demeanor and unyielding presence in Maplewood. Jake felt the pounding in his chest synchronize with the rapid thoughts spiraling through his mind. Was this confrontation the reckoning he feared? As Duncan approached, Jake instinctively shifted his posture, trying to exude confidence while the internal chaos rumbled beneath the surface. What if the officer had come to question his role with Lily? Doubts swirled. Did the neighbors already complain? Evening, Jake, Duncan greeted, his voice low but firm. The officer's eyes took a quick inventory of the surroundings, scanning for anything unusual before settling on Jake's face. Can we talk? The casual nature of the request felt anything but. Jake nodded, his throat dry as he replied, "Sure." A tense silence buzzed between them as they moved to a secluded corner of the yard, far enough from Lily yet close enough for him to keep an eye on her. "Here's the thing," Duncan started, his tone turning serious. "I've had a few calls from concerned citizens about you taking in that girl. Folks have questions." Jake clenched his fists at his sides, reflexively defending both Lily and himself. "You know what she's been through. I'm just trying to help her." "I know, but people are worried. You're a guy with a past." The implication hung between them, heavy with unspoken judgments. "Are you here to investigate me or are you supporting her?" Duncan's eyes softened slightly. "I'm not here to judge. But I want you to understand that certain circles may not view this situation favorably. The town remembers your past, Jake. You know that." The words sliced into his resolve, dredging up memories he had long tried to shove aside. How could he lead Lily into a new life if shadowed by the ghost of his previous mistakes? "Then I will change their minds," Jake declared, a fierce determination igniting within him. "I won't let anyone harm her." "Just be cautious," Duncan warned, the concern returning to his features. "People can be vicious. Protect yourself as much as her." As the officer departed, Jake felt the dual weight of Duncan's warning and the promise he had made to himself ripple through him. Facing judgment was an unavoidable consequence of the choice to become Lily's guardian. Yet, for the first time in a long stretch of time, he also felt exhilarated. He had a purpose that transcended his own anguish, to be a beacon of safety for Lily. Jake turned to find Lily in the garden, her small hands gently tending to some wilting flowers. She radiated an innocence that grounded him. As the shadows grew longer, he approached her, kneeling to meet her gaze. "Lily," he said gently, aware of the choice that lay ahead. "Do you feel safe here?" "Always," she responded, her voice a soft melody. "Good," he replied, fighting against the nagging anxiety to overshadow her earnestness. For Lily, he would navigate through the scrutiny awaiting him. But doubt was not finished with him yet. The whispers of criticism grew louder in his mind, gnawing at his confidence. Just then, the air shifted, heavy with the thrill of the unknown. What if the community's response turned violent? What steps did he need to take to shield Lily from potential fallout? The stakes were high, and the prospect of standing alone loomed large. Jake clenched his jaw, torn between nurturing Lily's trust and battling the ghosts of his past. Determined, he would take the fight to them. The time had come for him to face the whispers head-on for both their sakes. As night spread its wings across Maplewood, Jake turned toward the darkened horizon with a fervor burning in his chest. Little did he know, the shadows concealed more than just his fears, they harbored secrets that could unravel everything he sought to build with Lily. The next morning brought with it a hesitant calm, yet Jake could feel the underlying tension still clinging to the air like morning fog. He sat at the kitchen table, an empty cup before him. The house felt both familiar and strange, filled with echoes of his past and the laughter of the child he was trying to protect. He couldn't shake the feeling that the confrontation with Officer Duncan wasn't just a warning, it felt like a starting gun, igniting a race he must now run. As he stared blankly at the wall, his mind churned with plans for the day ahead. Jake had made a promise to Lily to keep her safe, to make this home a sanctuary for her. But safety required more than a determination forged in resilience, it needed practical steps. He had to build credibility, not just for the townsfolk but for himself. The first step hinged upon making sure Lily was integrated into the community, something he'd previously taken for granted. She had no friends, no stability. He needed to change that. The idea struck him suddenly, a flicker of inspiration igniting his resolve. He would enroll her in the local after-school program, the very one he had once feared. Jake had known many who had attended, and while they may have regarded him with suspicion, Lily could be the fresh start he needed to shift the narrative. "Lily," he called, feeling a newfound urgency as he got up from the table. She appeared moments later, her curious gaze brightening the room. "Can we go to the park today?" she asked, glancing outside at the sun beginning to rise higher in the sky. "Even better," Jake replied, a grin breaking across his face. He crouched down to meet her eye level. "We're going to sign you up for the after-school program. You'll make new friends, and there are activities you'll love." "What kind of activities?" Her excitement was palpable, and that innocence filled Jake with warmth. "Sports, art, games, anything you can imagine," he said, feeling hopeful as he spoke. "It will be fun, and I'll be right there to help you settle in." The prospect of their outing shifted from a routine trip to the park to a mission, a springboard for Jake's revival alongside Lily's growth. But deep inside him, an unsettling thought murmured. What if the community rejected her? Would their acceptance hinge upon his past instead of her innocence? Shaking his head, he pushed those fears aside. This was what he wanted, an opportunity to rise above. Together they would stand stronger against the tides of judgment swirling around them. He wouldn't let his past define them. After breakfast, they arrived at the park. The vibrant laughter of children echoing through the air took him off guard. Amidst it all, he felt a strange mix of comfort and trepidation. He had to remind himself that they were there for Lily, not his fears. As they walked to the registration booth, Jake noticed the slight glances directed their way, whispers exchanged like currency. Doubt threatened to creep in again, but he breathed through it. "Just focus on her," he whispered to himself. And as he turned to Lily, her face radiated anticipation, the purest form of trust. "Ready?" he asked, trying to suppress his nervousness. "More than ever," she chirped, taking his hand. Jake stepped forward with purpose, navigating toward the booth like a soldier entering the fray. He approached the volunteer, forcing himself to speak, to assert their presence in this unfamiliar territory. Their interactions were cautious at first, polite but shielded. The volunteer's eyes flicked to Jake's arms, gauging instead of assessing, and he felt the weight of judgment pressing in. Yet he wouldn't flinch, not now. Just as things began to smooth out, a loud voice cut through the laughter. "Hey!" Isn't that the guy? Jake's heart raced. He turned instinctively as a figure stepped forward, his expression jeering, the type he had seen lurking in the shadows of his past, eager to amplify every flaw. He realized in that moment that the first battle was being waged not just outside on the playground, but within him. Jake clenched his fists, silently reminding himself that he was not that man anymore. This was just the beginning of his fight, not just for acceptance, but for redemption. He had to confront this threat and secure Lily's place in the world. "What have you done?" he muttered under his breath, bracing for the storm that loomed ahead. The words still echoed in his mind. The time had come to face his past, and for Lily, he would rise to the occasion. As Jake turned to face the figure, the oppressive weight of expectation bore down on him. The familiar sensation of being under scrutiny put the edges of his mind on high alert. He squared his shoulders, calling upon the resolve he'd mustered for Lily. This moment was pivotal, the point where he could flip the narrative spiraling around him. "Yeah, it's me," he said, tossing a glance over his shoulder at Lily, who was still looking up at him with unshakable faith. "What do you want?" The antagonistic figure stepped closer, a smirk forming on his lips. "Just thought I'd say hello to the town's favorite criminal. Heard you're playing house now. How's the parenting?" His voice dripped with sarcasm, each word laced with malice. Jake felt the heat rising within him. Memories surged, dredging up old wounds, and for a heartbeat, he faltered. His fists clenched tighter, palm damp with sweat. He could feel the weight of judgment in the whispers circulating around them, the eyes of onlookers drawn to the confrontation. "Leave us alone," he managed, the words sounding inadequate even to his own ears. "Or what? You'll call the cops?" "Oh wait, they already know you," the voice snickered, provoking Jake further. In trying to stand tall for Lily, Jake realized he had to detach himself from the past that no longer defined him. How could he show strength while his insecurities flared like a late summer wildfire? As if sensing the pull of doubt, Lily squeezed his hand, grounding him. "Please," she whispered. He looked down, seeing her innocent eyes reflecting a trust he couldn't risk shattering. In that moment, something inside him shifted. Jake's shoulders relaxed slightly, drawing on that trust as a shield. The confrontation was no longer just about him at that moment, it was about her future. With a newfound clarity, he straightened up, facing the taunting figure with unwavering resolve. "You don't get to speak about us. The past is the past, and you're just a ghost that doesn't scare me anymore." The laughter around them dulled, but the spectators remained alert, watching as the narrative shifted. This wasn't just a moment of confrontation, it was a public reclaiming of his identity. A flicker of risk ignited inside him, leaving no room for retreat. "Whoa, look at you, trying to be all righteous and stuff," the figure retorted, now taken aback by Jake's boldness. It wasn't the sharp barbs or scornful remarks Jake feared, it was what he saw in others' eyes. The disbelief turned to acceptance. Without breaking eye contact, Jake spoke again. "I'm here for my daughter. Enrolling her in the after-school program so she can thrive, despite you and your beliefs." This solid declaration momentarily silenced the crowd. Did he dare to envision that this was part of his own rebirth? "Daughter? You?" The figure stammered, the momentum of his taunt faltering as the disbelief shone through. With a dismissive huff, he turned, perhaps searching for easier prey. As Jake watched him roll away, a wave of relief washed over him, but it didn't erase the niggling doubts that clung on the fringes of his mind. With a lingering sense of victory, he exhaled slowly, feeling the tension lift, if only slightly. "Can we go sign up now?" Lily asked, tugging on his hand, her eyes wide with unfiltered excitement. "Absolutely," he replied, a smile breaking through as he took her step forward. It dawned on him that this was just one small battle won in a myriad that lay ahead, but critical nonetheless. Yet, lurking behind the corners of this victory was the undeniable tension of what awaited. The community was still watching, and he had to remain vigilant. As they approached the registration booth, Jake's heart raced at the thought of tomorrow's challenges. "Lily," he said with newfound determination, "this is just the beginning for us." "What do you mean?" she replied, innocently curious. "Things will get tougher, but I promise I won't let anyone stand in our way," he responded, his voice a quiet promise that rang with firmness. And as he looked ahead, a figure caught his eye, another shadow from his past slipping into view. The battle had just begun. As they moved closer to the registration booth, the reality of what had just transpired began to settle within Jake. Each step brought with it an unsteady mix of triumph and anxiety. He felt as if he had stepped onto a stage, and though he had silenced the critic, the audience's eyes were still upon him, their expectations a palpable presence. He took a deep breath, trying to quiet the chaotic thoughts racing through his mind. A whirlwind of what-ifs and doubts threatened to unravel the resolve he had just claimed. "Can you believe that guy?" Lily asked, skipping happily beside him, her innocence a stark contrast to the tangled emotions swirling in his chest. "He's just not worth my time," Jake replied, pulling his focus back to her. Every moment he spent with her felt like an anchor, grounding him against the turbulent waters that were his past. As they reached the booth, a cheerful volunteer greeted them, her bright demeanor momentarily blinding him to his worries. "Welcome. Are you here to register for the after-school program?" Jake nodded, encouraging Lily to step forward. Her enthusiasm was infectious, she was already bubbling over with ideas of the adventures ahead. Watching her face light up as she filled out the registration form sparked a glimmer of hope within him. This was their chance, an opportunity to carve out a new life where shadows of his past no longer loomed so large. However, as the volunteer handed Lily a pamphlet filled with activities and events, that hope unspooled into another anxiety thread. What if he had miscalculated? What if the community never truly accepted him? Each glowing description of after-school events felt like a reminder of the journey he still needed to undertake, a journey that would test not only his resolve but also the strength of his commitments. Glancing around, he noted families greeting each other with familiarity, laughter cascading through the air. The contrast with his isolation cut deep, stinging like a harsh reminder of the connections he had long severed. He felt himself slipping back into the familiar grip of insecurity. But just then, Lily turned, her eyes glistening as she pulled him back to her world. "Dad, look!" she exclaimed, pointing at a photo of a dog in the pamphlet, an exuberant golden retriever captured mid-leap. "Can we get a dog? It would be like having a brother or sister." The thought nagged at him. He had no idea how he would manage the responsibilities of parenting, let alone that of a pet. But the sheer enthusiasm radiating from Lily inspired a flicker of courage. "We'll see, Lil," he said, trying to mask his uncertainty as he ruffled her hair. As they wrapped up the registration, he caught sight of the figure from earlier, hovering by the entrance. This time, instead of shame and fear washing over him, he felt a different impulse, a need for confrontation simmered beneath his skin. He could feel the pull of unresolved conflicts, but he had also identified a growing strength within him. The prospect of standing tall against the specter of his past was enticing. "Lily, wait here for a second," Jake said, his voice unsteady but his gaze firm as he stepped away, determined to reclaim not just a name but a sense of belonging. "Where are you going?" she called after him, concern knitting her brow. "To take care of something," he replied, his heart thundering in his chest. The steps he took were hesitant yet resolute as he approached the figure. Each footfall echoed with the weight of his commitments clashing against the dark memories of who he used to be. "Thought I told you to stay away," Jake said, forcing the words out as he confronted the figure. The reaction was immediate. The figure's confidence faltered, and for a moment, he looked almost vulnerable. But Jake wasn't here to grant mercy. This was about establishing boundaries, about teaching both himself and Lily that they could rewrite their narrative. "Things are different now. I'm here for my daughter, and don't you ever forget that," Jake declared, his voice steady this time. The figure seemed to contemplate the new Jake before him, the air thick with possibilities. Perhaps this confrontation would lay the foundation for a new beginning, both for Jake and for those who had perpetuated the weight of his past. But just as he turned back to find Lily, a new voice called out from the shadows, another ghost unearthing old fears. The past was not done with him yet. Jake's heart skipped at the sound of the voice, each syllable a jagged shard echoing through the security he had just built. It was a voice he recognized all too well, a reminder of the life he had fought to leave behind. He turned slowly, every muscle in his body tensing as memories flashed, corrosive and vivid. Jake. It was Amy, a name tinged with memories of love, betrayal, and a past he desperately wished to forget. She stepped out of the shadows, her expression unreadable, but Jake could feel the weight of her gaze dissecting him. "Why are you here?" he managed, hating how the tone of his voice betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. "I came to see Lily," she declared, an inflection that both seized his thoughts and alarmed him. The very idea of her re-entering their life twisted something deep within him. As Amy stepped closer, he felt the air grow thick between them, charged with unspoken words and intense emotions. Memories of their shared laughter were eclipsed by the shadows of arguments and the finality of her departure. "You don't get to just waltz back in," he countered, his frustration boiling to the surface. He couldn't let this moment unravel what he had just built with Lily. "Listen to me," she replied, raising her hands as if to frame her honesty. "I'm not asking for what was. I'm here to talk about our daughter. I want to be in her life." The sheer audacity of her presence ignited a storm in Jake's chest. "What do you mean you want to be in her life? You walked away, Amy. You chose your escape over us." Each word cut deeper than he intended, but the anger felt necessary. Her eyes softened, and for a moment, he thought he might see a glimmer of regret. I made mistakes. But I'm back now. Can't you see that I'm trying? He contemplated her earnestness, grappling with a mixture of anger and something softer, heartbreak perhaps. There was no room in this new life he was molding for the complexities that Amy brought with her. He had spent countless nights wrestling with those choices, believing they were behind him. Trying? He echoed, incredulous. 10 years too late for that. Lily is happy now, and I won't allow you to disrupt her life. Not again. A lot has changed, Jake, she said, her tone shifting to one of frustration. I've changed. No, you haven't. The silence hung between them, charged, until Jake's eyes flicked back to where Lily stood a distance away, enveloped in her own world, blissfully unaware of the dialogue unfurling. Right then, clarity surged through him. It wasn't only about confronting the past or the ghost Amy conjured but about protecting the future he was building. I won't let you hurt her again, he asserted, feeling stronger now. The words were a shield, a commitment solidifying his newfound belief in his role as a dad. Before she could respond, he pivoted toward Lily, the taste of confrontation still sharp on his tongue. But when Jake caught her gaze, that moment of innocent joy shattered the tension he had just forged. Lily smiled brightly, oblivious to the storm swirling just a few feet away. Dad, can we get ice cream after this? She chirped, brightening up the dim conflict between her parents. A part of him wanted to rush back into her embrace, but he turned one last time to Amy. If you care, then you'll keep your distance. For her sake. As he walked away, with Lily at his side, Jake felt a mix of triumph and unresolved tension. Could he really keep her off their path, or was this only the beginning of his struggles as a father grappling with an uncertain future? In that moment of fortitude, he knew that his journey was still unfurling, and he steeled himself for the battles ahead. What if Amy wasn't the end of their strife? Just as he thought he had paved the way for a new life, battling his past and securing a semblance of peace, could there be more ghosts lurking, waiting to further complicate his crown of newfound strength? Jake's mind raced as he navigated the bustling street with Lily, her laughter a sweet contrast to the storm churning within him. How could he focus on ice cream, a treat meant to symbolize normalcy, when the specter of Amy loomed just beyond their momentary happiness? Each step was grounded in dread, a heavy reminder of what he had just confronted and the instability it reintroduced to their lives. Lily tugged at his arm. Dad, hurry. I want the rainbow sprinkles. He managed a smile for her sake, but inside, he was waging a war. The resolve he had just forged clear and unwavering felt precarious when faced with the flags of doubt Amy had planted in his mind. What did it mean to protect Lily? He had convinced himself that he was doing a great job raising her alone, shielding her from her mother's whims and unpredictability. But perhaps there were lessons to learn from Amy's unexpected arrival. Was there a way to accept his past while remaining steadfastly committed to their future? As they approached the ice cream shop, the vibrancy of the place assaulted him, with children running wild and parents chatting joyously. 1 scoop of mint chocolate chip. Lily proclaimed, pointing excitedly to the flavor display. Coming right up, he said, but his thoughts trailed back to Amy's words. I've changed. How genuine was that transformation? Could he be rational in his expectations of her, or was it folly to allow space for her into their lives? Dad. He turned back to find Lily staring up at him, her eyes wide. Are you okay? Yeah, sweetheart. Just thinking, he said, kneeling to her level. What flavor are you getting? Mint chocolate chip, of course. She giggled, filling the air with a lightness that briefly ensnared him in the moment. After ordering, they settled on a bench outside. The sun felt warm against his skin, and Jake breathed in deeply, attempting to clear his thoughts. Maybe he needed to revisit how he viewed Amy. If she genuinely wanted to be involved, perhaps that could serve as a foundation for Lily to form a connection with her mother, something he had been vehemently against. Yet, the panic mustered at the thought made him nauseous. Trust was a delicate thread. What would happen if he let go of his guard, only to have it all ripped apart again? I wish Mom was here, Lily suddenly sighed, staring down into her ice cream, a look of longing briefly clouding her face. The sentiment pierced right through Jake. He could hardly bear to hear it, knowing how complicated and fragile things were between them. I know you miss her, but I want you to know I'm always here for you, no matter what, he whispered, instinctively reassuring, yet haunted by the very mention of Amy's name. Do you think she'll come back? The question hovered between them, filled with unspoken hopes and fears. Jake swallowed hard, searching for the right words. If she chooses to be a part of your life, we'll figure it out together. It was a conditional promise, stemming from a place of protection, but something about it felt wrong. Was he letting his emotions dictate his role rather than standing firm in his convictions? You think I should give her a chance? Lily asked, her youthful innocence sharpening the dilemma. Jake nodded slowly, unsure of where this would lead but recognizing that avoidance wasn't a lasting solution. The pieces of his careful life felt like they were slipping, and he couldn't hold on to fear forever. As he finished his ice cream, he looked out at the street, noticing a lump forming at the pit of his stomach. Though he had wanted to shield Lily, perhaps the real challenge lay in how to help her navigate complexities as they emerged. It wasn't only about rebuilding his own life, it was about building resilience together. Moving forward, he would have to confront his fears, a fresh perspective on parenthood mingling with the need for trust. This newly determined path stretched before him, lined with uncertainty and conflicting emotions. Yet a deeper fear began to settle over him. What if Amy wasn't their only challenge? The world outside brimmed with possibilities, both for connection and chaos. Just then, Jake spotted a familiar face in the crowd approaching the shop. A figure who had always embodied stability, who had been his anchor amidst the storm of his post-divorce life. It was his sister, Claire. Stepping into view, she flashed a knowing smile that momentarily dulled the rising anxiety. But he immediately felt a swell of apprehension. What could she possibly want to talk about today? Just as she reached them, Jake knew this encounter might uncover more hidden truths about what lay ahead, turning the screws of uncertainty tighter around his chest. What revelations would arise from this unexpected meeting? Claire settled down beside Jake, her presence both comforting and disquieting. Her cautious gaze swept over Lily, who was licking her ice cream, seemingly oblivious to the tension brewing in the air. I saw you two from across the street and thought I'd come say hi, she said, her voice light, but Jake detected an underlying seriousness. Hey! Lily cheered, glancing at her aunt, her smile wide and genuine. I got mint chocolate chip. Fantastic choice. Claire replied, resting her arm on the bench to lean closer to her niece. How's it been with just you and Dad? Jake resisted the urge to intercept Claire's probing. He didn't want to put Lily in a situation where she felt compelled to share anything too personal, and the last thing he needed was a public discussion about his parenting choices. Still, he couldn't deny the weight behind his sister's inquiry. He needed support, but wasn't entirely sure he could articulate the chaos in his mind. Good. We've been doing fun things. Right, Dad? Lily's answer came bright and unwavering, illuminated by her innocence. Jake nodded, though the truth was more nuanced. Yeah, we've tried to keep busy. Claire's brow furrowed slightly, an indication that she wasn't buying the simplicity of his response. Busy is good, but are you okay? Really? Jake felt the familiar urge to deflect, to protect himself from exposing the fear and uncertainty that churned within. Yet, Claire had always been his confidant, the sibling who knew him better than any friend possibly could. Caution battled with his need for connection as he searched for a reply that wouldn't unsettle Lily. I don't know. Things are complicated, he said finally. With everything that's happened lately, I just want to make sure Lily is okay. Complicated how? You're doing a good job, but it sounds like there's more beneath the surface, Claire pressed softly, her expression welcoming. Jake inhaled deeply. The stakes felt higher with every breath he took. Amy showed up yesterday, he admitted, unable to keep the weight of that revelation inside any longer. Instantly, Lily's enthusiasm dimmed as she glanced between her father and aunt, sensing the shift in energy. "Jake," Claire said, her tone more serious now. "Did you talk to her? What did she want?" "No. I didn't want to. I still don't," he replied, emotions roiling as he struggled against past disappointments. "But now I'm questioning everything, whether I'm being fair to Lily by keeping her away." Before answering, Claire regarded him with an intensity that suggested she discerned the complexity of the moment. "You're not just a shield, Jake, you're a father. It's okay to let her be a part of your journey if that's what you see as best for Lily. But you also have to protect her from harm. But is it worth the risk?" Jake countered sharply, voice laced with frustration. "What if I open that door, and she just walks right back out? Or worse, what if she doesn't? Maybe she has changed," Claire suggested, looking him directly in the eyes. "But whether that's true or not, this isn't just about Amy. It's about you confronting what you fear, about whether you can trust not only her but yourself." The words hung between them, dense with expectation. Jake felt an internal shift, a crack in the wall he had built to protect himself. Listening to Claire, he recognized how his reactions were no longer solely a reflection of his past with Amy but were intertwining with his current responsibilities as a father. Suddenly, Lily's innocent voice pierced through the anxiety weighted around them. "Dad, maybe Mom just wants to be my mom now. Can't we give her the chance to try?" Jake's heart sank at her earnestness. A mix of dread and an uncomfortable twist of hope churned within him. Could he really open himself up, fully, to this uncertainty, to the possibility of granting Amy another chance? He wanted to be the father Lily saw, yet he needed to protect her heart first. This moment, standing on the precipice of change, left him teetering between the past and an uncertain future. Neither Claire nor Lily fully understood the enormity of what lay ahead, but for the first time, Jake felt he might have to face the choices he had long avoided. Each potential path wrestled for dominance in his mind, but one thing was unmistakably clear: the shadow of Amy was not going away. As Claire loaded more questions into the air, urging Jake to explore the discomforts within him, he realized he needed to confront Amy, a decision that could redefine everything they thought they knew. The thought crashed upon him, overwhelming yet inescapable: the time had come to face her. Jake stood at the edge of uncertainty, tethered between his past and the future he wished to forge for Lily. Each beat of his heart echoed the weight of everything he had fought for, particularly the fragile life he was building with her. If the course of his story was to redirect from shadows into light, confronting Amy was an unavoidable chapter. The decision crystallized with an unexpected clarity as he peered into Lily's wide, innocent eyes, seeking truth in her unwavering gaze. She had always been the catalyst for his transformation, every laugh, every smile, a reaffirmation of the purpose he had long sought. But would he tear down the wall he had built to keep her safe by allowing her mother back into their lives? "Lily," Jake began, taking a moment to frame his thoughts, "you know that what we've built together, it's special, right?" "Uh-huh." She beamed, ice cream smudged around her lips. With a steady inhale, a surge of determination coursed through him. "But sometimes people need second chances, even if it's scary." Lily's expression shifted slightly, displaying a myriad of emotions: curiosity, hope, and perhaps just a hint of concern. "You mean Mom?" "Yeah," he admitted, his voice faltering for a brief second before he pressed on. "I can't promise it'll be easy, but I think we need to see what she's like now, and whether she really wants to be a part of your life." As he formed the words, Jake felt as if he were slowly peeling away layers of worry and fear, confronting the truth that had been lurking in the background. He was ready to redefine what safety meant, not solely through isolation but rather by navigating the complexities of open relationships. Ultimately, trust would guide not only his decisions but Lily's development as well. Do you want that? He asked, gauging her reaction. Lily nodded, the light in her eyes unwavering. I think it would be nice to have her, Dad. A wave of uncertainty washed over Jake, but he also felt buoyed by the support of his sister, as if the two of them were standing tall against the tide. Claire watched, a subtle smile spreading across her face, encouraging him even without words. As they finished their ice cream, Jake wrestled with the logistics of confronting Amy. He didn't want to bring her into their lives if her intentions were unclear, and he sensed the skepticism rising in him about the truth, whether she could genuinely change or if her reappearance would undo all of their progress. A few days passed, filled with a precarious mixture of anticipation and tension, before Jake finally decided it was time to reach out to Amy. He made the call with a steady intention, voice firm but civil, and asked to meet. When the day arrived, he felt a whirlwind of emotions: nervousness, resentment, and a flicker of hope. They agreed to meet at a local coffee shop, a neutral ground imprinted with the sweetness of coffee blends and pastries. As he sat waiting, Jake reflected on the transformation that had taken root within him. He had evolved from a man shackled by guilt and isolation to someone willing to allow new connections, no matter how intimidating. When Amy arrived, she seemed different, softened by time, perhaps a touch more vulnerable. With careful composure, she approached him with cautious optimism. Thank you for meeting me, Jake. Let's just talk, he said firmly, wanting to cut through pleasantries. Their conversation surged through understated emotions and tense silences, the layers of their tumultuous past surfacing as a reminder of their old lives. Yet Jake sensed there was a difference. This was not merely about recriminations, but rather about what could potentially grow from here. I want to understand both of you, Amy said earnestly. I've spent so much time thinking about everything about you, about Lily. I want to be part of her life, but I'm not here to disrupt anything. Jake studied her face for signs of sincerity, grounding himself in the truth that this was about Lily. You have to prove that you're committed. She deserves stability, not chaos. I know, Amy responded, her tone reverberating with the weight of old regrets. I can commit. I want to show her the mother I should have been. As they talked, a raw openness emerged, a connection built on easy flow instead of contention. Their past intertwined with the hope of a new beginning, a thread of potential intricately woven into the dialogue. It was a challenging process, and for every assurance Amy made, Jake felt a hint of trepidation about what it would mean for Lily in the long run. Could she honestly change? Would it be enough? Eventually, after hours of dialogue, they reached a breakthrough. Constructing a plan for gradually integrating Amy into Lily's life felt daunting but necessary. They would start with small visits, limited to structured activities, something that could organically develop into a foundation of trust. Once they parted ways, Jake felt something shift inside him. It wasn't just about ridding the shadows of the past anymore, it was about finding ways forward. Giving Lily the chance to explore the relationship with her mother allowed him to simultaneously embrace his own path of growth, emerging from one of judgment and fear into possibilities anchored in understanding. Day by day, their lives unfolded with a newfound flexibility. Lily, while initially anxious, began to embrace the anticipation of welcoming Amy into her world. As each visit transpired, Jake felt a proud sense of accomplishment. He was not merely protecting Lily but also participating in her emotional journey. He was eager to rewrite their narrative and provide a rich tapestry of experiences that intertwined hope, love, and the courage to confront their shared past. Months later, while walking through the park with Lily on a sun-filled afternoon, Jake felt a deep sense of gratitude. He looked down at her, this resilient child who had transformed his existence. Discovering layers of courage when he feared being powerless had cemented within him a solid confidence that blossomed into unwavering resolve. Dad! Can we go feed the ducks? Lily chirped, pulling him toward the pond. Of course, Jake replied, bending down to battle the sticky warmth of her hand. As he watched Lily skip ahead, laughter bubbling through the air, he realized they were no longer defined just by their pasts. Together, They were creating a story one steeped in healing and hope that would surely weather any storm ahead. Jake's heart swelled with pride. He stood anchored in their bright horizon. And in that moment, he embraced a powerful understanding. It was the messy threads of their past that had fortified their bond, enabling him to prove his commitment as both a father and a role model. Still, the road ahead would remain uncertain, but for the first time, Jake felt wholly prepared to navigate it. John A. Stossel summarized it perfectly: the key to an exceptional life is being willing to confront those you fear. Now was their time. They had the power to redefine the future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is vital. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending of Jake's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.